It is December 1914. 5 months into a war that was supposed to be over by Christmas. The Western Front is a scar across the face of Europe, a gruesome network of trenches stretching from the North Sea to the Swiss border. Here, millions of men, huddled in mud and filth, face each other across a blasted strip of earth known as no man's land. The initial patriotic fervor has long since frozen over, replaced by a grim, monotonous reality of shelling, sniper fire, and the constant, knowing presence of death. For the soldiers of the British Expeditionary Force and the Imperial German Army, life has become a hellish routine. Days are spent in cold, damp trenches, battling not just the enemy, but also frostbite, trench foot, and the rats that grew fat on the fallen. Nights offer no respite, only the chilling darkness, punctuated by the flare of star shells and the thunder of artillery. Hope is a currency in short supply. Letters from home speak of a world that feels a million miles away, a world of warmth, family, and peace that seems like a distant, half-remembered dream. As Christmas Eve approaches, the fighting intensifies along many sectors. The commanders on both sides, far from the front lines, are determined to maintain pressure. Orders are given for raids and bombardments, ensuring that the holiday will be marked by more bloodshed. For the men in the trenches, it seems this holy night will be no different from any other, just another date on a calendar inching towards a seemingly endless conflict. The air is thick with the smell of gunpowder and decay, and the mood is one of profound exhaustion and despair. No one could have predicted what was about to happen. No one could have imagined that in this theater of industrial-scale slaughter, a glimmer of humanity was about to shine through. As darkness falls on December 24th, a strange stillness begins to settle over parts of the front line, particularly in the Ypres salient in Belgium. The usual crackle of rifle fire and the roar of big guns subsides, replaced by an unnerving quiet. British soldiers, peering cautiously over their parapets, see something extraordinary. Along the German trenches, small lights begin to appear. At first, they are mistaken for lanterns for an impending attack. But then, more lights appear, dozens of them, lining the enemy trench like festive decorations. They are Christmas trees, Tannenbaum, sent from Germany to boost the morale of their troops. Then, a sound drifts across the frozen expanse of no man's land. It has a sound so out of place in this landscape of death that it feels almost surreal. A lone German voice begins to sing. The melody is instantly recognizable, Still Nacht, Heilige Nacht. Silent night, holy night. Soon, other German voices join in, their carol rising into the cold, clear night air. The British soldiers listen in stunned silence. When the carol finishes, they respond not with bullets, but with applause. Then, one of them starts a carol of their own, the first Noel. The Germans applaud in return. For a few brief moments, the war is replaced by a concert. This musical exchange continues up and down the line. Emboldened by this shared moment, soldiers from both sides begin to shout Christmas greetings across the divide. Merry Christmas, Tommy. Frohe Weihnachten, Fritz. Cautious at first, they begin to climb out of their trenches. They are tentative, hands held high to show they are unarmed. A few brave souls step into the cratered wasteland of no man's land, a place where any movement usually means instant death. They are met not by gunfire, but by other men, walking towards them from the opposite trench. What happens next is one of the most remarkable events in modern history. In the middle of a brutal war, enemies meet as friends. German and British soldiers, who just hours before had been trying to kill each other, shake hands. They share what little they have: German cigars, English cigarettes, chocolate, buttons cut from their tunics as souvenirs. They show each other photographs of their families, wives, and children, finding common ground in their shared longing for home. Language barriers are overcome with gestures, smiles, and the universal language of goodwill. These informal truces are not universal, and in some sectors, the fighting rages on. But in many places, particularly where Saxon and Bavarian regiments faced British troops, the ceasefire holds. The soldiers themselves, acting without orders and in direct defiance of their commander's intent, have decided to stop the war, if only for a day. They are not generals or politicians, they are ordinary men, bakers, farmers, clerks who have found a moment of shared humanity amidst the madness. Christmas Day 1914 dawns cold and bright. The truce continues. Men who had lived in fear of the space between the trenches now walk it freely. One of the most important and somber tasks they undertake together is the burial of their dead. Soldiers from both sides help each other to retrieve the bodies of their fallen comrades who lay in no man's land. They hold joint burial services, reading from the 23rd Psalm in both English and German. In this act of mutual respect for the dead, they honor the humanity of the men they were forced to call enemy. The day is filled with incredible scenes. In one area, a football match is improvised. A British soldier describes how a ball was kicked out from their lines, and a lively, chaotic game began between the Germans and the men of his Scottish regiment. There are no proper goals, no referee, just dozens of men in heavy boots and uniforms chasing a ball across the frozen mud. For a few hours, they are not soldiers, but simply young men enjoying a game, their laughter echoing across the fields where so many had fallen. These events are a testament to the fact that the men on the front lines often felt more kinship with the soldiers facing them than with the generals in the rear. They endured the same misery, the same cold, the same fear. They understood, in a way no one else could, the futility of their situation. The Christmas truce was a spontaneous, grassroots rebellion against the absurdity of the war. It was a clear and powerful statement that their common humanity was stronger than the national hatreds that had driven them into the trenches. But this moment of peace could not last. The high commands on both sides were horrified. They saw the truce as a dangerous breakdown of military discipline, a threat to the fighting spirit required to win the war. Strict orders were issued, forbidding any further fraternization with the enemy. Commanders were ordered to resume hostilities, and soldiers were threatened with court-martial if they disobeyed. The generals feared that if men realized their enemies were just like them, they might refuse to fight altogether. Slowly, reluctantly, the truce began to unravel. In some sectors, it ended with a warning shot, a prearranged signal that the war was about to restart. In others, it simply faded away as the men drifted back to their respective trenches. A British officer, Captain Charles Stockwell, recalled firing 3 shots into the air at 8:30 a.m. on Boxing Day and raising a flag that said Merry Christmas. A German captain appeared and bowed, and they both returned to their lines. A few moments later, Stockwell heard a German officer shout an order, and the war was on again. The soldiers were once again pawns in a vast, impersonal machine of destruction. The Christmas truce of 1914 was never repeated on such a scale. As the war dragged on, the bitterness and the sheer scale of the slaughter made such fraternization impossible. The introduction of poison gas, the horrific losses at battles like the Somme and Verdun, and the relentless propaganda on both sides hardened attitudes and extinguished the kind of sentiment that had allowed for the truce. The war became more total, more brutal, and the brief glimmer of peace in 1914 became a distant, almost mythical memory. Today, the Christmas truce stands as a powerful symbol. It is a poignant reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit's capacity for peace, empathy, and kindness can endure. It questions the very nature of war and the divisions that are constructed between people. The men who met in no man's land did not end the war, but for one brief, shining moment, they created a peace of their own. Their story is not just a footnote in history, it is a timeless lesson in humanity, a story that continues to resonate over a century later, reminding us of the hope for peace that lives within us all. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as moving as we did, please consider subscribing for more journeys into the past.